5.
All right, welcome everybody to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It's Wednesday, February 18th. And we do have a few members out a little bit this morning, but we forge upward and onward. So we have a committee bill that we're going to take a look at, responding to some requests from Burlington Electric and from the Department of Public Service. So we'll just go around the room and quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Representative Kathleen James from Manchester.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Dara Torrey, Washington 2.
Laura Sibilia, Wyndham 2. Just gonna go get a copy of this.
Scott, you're muted.
As I should be. And I'm Scott Asbury.
Great. All right. Thanks so much. Okay. So who would like to, we're going to do a walkthrough of the language, which none of us have seen before. Briefly seen it. Who would like to go first? Ellen or Maria?
If you don't mind, Maria.
Great. And it's posted, I think, on our website, right?
Yes. Yep. And Maria Royal with Legislative Council. I do have some extra hard copies if anybody wants a hard copy.
I'll take one. Thank you. Actually, I'm seeing a broken link. Is this draft 1.1? No.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
It isn't.
All righty. We'll get the link fixed and we've got some hard copies. Right. Let's see here. Scott, should I leave a hard copy for you on your desk? Okay.
Sure, thank you.
All righty, off we go.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull up the document here. So it just mentioned that there's a committee bill. It doesn't have a bill number yet because it has not been introduced, but the request number is 26-0781. And we're gonna take these out of order if that's okay.
Sure.
My sections are pretty quick and straightforward. And they relate to telecommunications, and specifically on page 4 of the draft, the last page, sections 3 and 4. So these were proposals that the Department of Public Service presented to you. The first one in section 3 is to extend the date by which the department needs to adopt a new telecom plan. This is a 10-year telecom plan. Under statute, you can see on line 2 of page 4, they're required to adopt a new plan every 3 years. The proposal is to now extend that to 5 years. And they still can revise if things come up or you request them to. And then
Actually,
yeah,
question.
sure.
So this language is also in the governor's recommended FY27 budget, which we discovered through our diligent homework. So what is the protocol? Do we leave this here as well in sort of a, I hate the phrase belts and suspenders.
You can leave,
In a cover our bases way, or do we knock it out here because it's in the budget?
Yeah, so I mean that's up to you. You can leave it here if you have any concern that it might not remain in the budget for some reason. Then I would say keep it here. I suspect the language is identical, so even if both versions pass, there wouldn't be a conflict. But if we get to the end of the process and it's clear that it's going to stay in the budget, or the budget will say, they don't want to include it in there. It's really, there's no problem with leaving it here for now. And really that just depends on the appropriations committees.
Right.
Whether they're gonna.
Well, we flagged it in our budget letter for approps. And then in our earlier testimony with the department, we learned that they've already booked the savings they're already counting on the savings in the budget, and said that if this were to not happen, that the work would then come at the cost of other work. So it's it's sort of been presented as a fait accompli.
Okay, okay.
I guess I would then, and the committee discussed it yesterday, and generally, I think we support this anyway. So should we just leave it in here?
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you're confident it can stay in the budget, then you probably don't need it here. But if you want to leave it here, that's okay too.
Thoughts?
Yes,
Yes.
leave it in.
Leave it in? Fine with leaving it in. Yeah, another question.
So is it 37? It took 37. It's not older than is it 27 that the next one is due? So I think that's what they said.
The
I
telecom
think
plan?
that's why they.
Yeah,
That's
it's due
right.
it's due in FY 27.
Yeah,
So that means they have until
26.
20. Oh, it's due
29.
this year?
well,
Yeah,
fiscal year
FY 27.
27.
So it'll be due in fiscal year
It's probably,
29.
So that's what we talked about yesterday, that the comprehensive energy plan is 28, the telecom plan is 29, and the sunset, 24880 sunset is 30.
Okay, I would just like to say I support this. I support leaving this in. I also will say one more time on the record that this whole section of law needs to be looked at and updated and rewritten, in my opinion.
And in my opinion,
So
I-
there's plenty of time to do that.
well,
And
I was
next
just
one
going to
is due.
say, and I would flag that, the lessons learned this year, for significant work then by interested members over the summer and the fall, so we don't dive into that cold next January with no prep.
Right.
So folks want to get into that, get into it. With all stakeholders at the table. Thank you. Lecture done. All right.
okay, so then the next section, section 4 is a repeal, and that relates to the Telecommunications and Connectivity Advisory Board,
Right.
which apparently has only met twice since 2021. It was
And
great.
this, yes, and has been pleading with us to repeal them.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And that concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Maria.
Sorry, Ellen.
Okay.
All right, Ellen Jakowski, Office of Legislative Counsel. So I am still here on draft 1.1 of the committee bill. So the first two sections are related to energy. So section 1 on page 1 is what you have been calling the EMA update, Energy Efficiency Modernization Act update. This was language you've heard about from the Electric Department and the Department of Public Service. So I have made a recommendation here in the way that I've drafted it. I don't think it needs to be an update to EMA. So EMA was a pilot program that was created 6 years ago. It was initially created for a 3-year period and then extended for another 3-year period for 6 years. That statute is 5 pages long. And the language that was being proposed by Burlington Electric and the department is significantly shorter, and to me doesn't look like it actually is using the rest of the EMA statute and process. So I have drafted this as a standalone program. If you would like to amend the EMA statute and change, or it's not a statute, it's actually just in session law because it's a pilot program. If you'd like to amend that, that is an option you have, but I don't think legally you need to. It seems like this is again a one-time use of funds, change in the use of the funds for a specific entity. If you would like to make it more permanent than that, I would suggest that you consider putting it in statute and not just having a floating piece of session law. And I'm also happy to talk more about the Energy Efficiency Modernization Pilot Program. But as far as the walkthrough, on page 1, Section 1, use of energy efficiency charge funds for greenhouse gas emission reductions program. So it's a new session law provision, not specifically tied to the prior pilot program. Subsection A, notwithstanding any provision of law or order of the PUC to the contrary, the PUC shall authorize an entity appointed under 30 VSA 209 D2A, so an efficiency utility, that is also a retail electricity provider. So you will recall we have 3 efficiency utilities: Efficiency Vermont, Vermont Gas Systems, and Burlington Electric Department. The only one of those that is also a retail electricity provider is Burlington Electric, so this is an allusion to them. 4 calendar years, 2027 through 2029, to spend any amount the entity has, onto page 2, available to it through its annually budgeted thermal energy and process fuel funds and carry forward thermal energy and process fuel funds from prior periods on programs, measures, and services that reduce fossil fuel use and greenhouse gas emissions in the thermal energy or transportation sector, regardless of the pre-existing fuel source for the customer. The entity may also use thermal energy and process fuel funds under this section to deliver thermal and transportation measures or programs that enable fossil fuel and greenhouse gas emission reductions, such as geothermal test well funding, regardless of the pre-existing fuel source for the customer. So this is a setting up that specifically Burlington Electric can use the funds it has available in a way that currently under the statute they are not allowed to, but using this provision they can spend it on additional types of measures and programs. Down on line 10, under this section, the entity shall also prioritize weatherization and thermal sector efficiency programs within its offerings pursuant to this section, and shall budget at least 60% of the funds for programs under this section for weatherization and thermal sector efficiency programs to be offered to customers regardless of their pre-existing fuel source, with a minimum of 60% of those weatherization and thermal sector efficiency program funds allocated for customers with low income and low to moderate income, and projects requiring electric panel or wiring upgrades or abatement of other health or building related items to facilitate weatherization and thermal efficiency. That is the longest sentence I have seen in a while. Subsection C, the entity shall seek approval from the PUC for all planned expenditures through the 3-year performance period as part of the triennial energy efficiency utility planning process, on to page 3, in the demand resources plan proceeding, and report to the PUC annually on program participation, including any customer survey data obtained that discuss how impactful incentives offered under the section work for customer adoption. Any funds spent on programs, measures, and services pursuant to this section shall not be counted towards the calculation of funds used by the entity for energy transformation projects under Tier 3 of the RES, and the calculation of project costs pursuant to 8005 EC, which is still Tier 3.
So I have a question.
Sure.
There's nothing in here about whether the entity can use these funds to augment incentives for EVs. About that during testimony from the ED director.
So it doesn't specifically mention EVs, but in subsection A, it does say that they can use their budgeted thermal process fuel funds from prior periods to reduce fossil fuel transport and greenhouse gas emissions in the thermal or energy transportation sector. So there is mention of that.
Yes, no, I noticed that, and is this language based sort of entirely on the proposed language from BED and Public Service?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so maybe I guess they worked this out, but I don't know. We talked about them using well, augmenting EV incentives for people in Burlington that are incentives that aren't available to anyone else in the state. The silence is deafening.
I'm trying to catch up here. Yeah, Rep. Howland?
The EV fund, the efficiency funds collected by Burlington Electric are not commingled with Efficiency Vermont Fund and the like, are they?
No, they're
They-
not comparable. They're completely separate.
So the pot that somebody from Burlington Electric Service Territory would use is different than the rest of the people that are served by Efficiency Vermont. And what about Vermont Gas? Is their funds in a separate envelope per se to their customers?
Not sure I understand the question.
The Burlington Electric has their own efficiency fund and they're their own efficiency utility. The
Right.
rest, Vermont Gas has an efficiency utility, and how they get their income, I'm not sure. But the rest of Efficiency Vermont gets funded in part or in whole by the energy efficiency fee that's on a kilowatt hour.
Right, so Efficiency Vermont uses that funds for electric efficiency. Vermont Gas Systems has a different pot of funds because it's thermal and process fuel efficiency. It's a different.
So
Type of
we're not
efficiency
talking about any electrical efficiency fund here. We're only talking about Vermont Gases.
We're not talking about Vermont Gas in this bill. We're talking about Burlington Electric. We're also not talking about Efficiency Vermont, just Burlington Electric, and using their existing thermal funds for projects they may not currently be able to use them for under statute. Letting them use different funds for these types of programs.
Because otherwise, we heard in testimony, they'll be getting the money and not able to spend it. Correct.
So if they can't use that money, does it revert back?
I think it remains in the fund, but I think it remains in the fund until they can use it, but I would defer to probably the department on how they do that.
Yeah, because I'd like to know what happens if they can't
Use it.
do the expenditures to zero it out. Does that money revert back to the department somehow, or what does it do?
Is Darren joining us?
Oh, right here.
Oh, hi.
Well,
I didn't see you over there.
it's here.
I was looking for you on Zoom. Do you know the answer to that?
I do. Darren Springer, General Manager with Burlington Electric. Typically, if we have thermal energy process fuel funds that we don't spend in a 3-year period, they roll over to the next 3-year period. So they stay in Burlington, they're Burlington ratepayer dollars, but this allows us to expend them as opposed to just having to roll them over.
So they don't revert back to.
Not typically. Alec might.
Yeah, the funds we're talking about are funds that are collected from the revenues from the forward capacity market auctions and the regional greenhouse gas initiative auctions. Sorry, Alec can't say.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Public service. And so we're not talking about electric efficiency charge dollars here. This is money that comes from elsewhere.
Okay, so that just stays in and just grows.
Essentially, yeah. And BED is allotted a certain percentage of the total state revenue, so it's just a small portion that they're allotted.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. Why don't we finish the walkthrough and then maybe you guys can join us.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have to be somewhere else at 9:30.
Perfect.
So I think
Okay,
we're-
great.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Helen.
So on page 3, section 2. So one of the requests you received was also from the department about amending the enhanced energy planning statute to line up with the land use review board's review of regional plans. And so I did not know quite how to draft that. So here's my proposal, though I do think the department is going to respond with language that they think works better. Section 2 is amending 24 VSA 4352. So for regional plans, this enhanced energy planning can happen at the regional plan level, and then a municipal plan can also adopt it. So this first section that's being amended is for the regional plan only. So a regional planning commission may submit its regional plan to the Commissioner of Public Service appointed under 30 VSA Section 1 for a determination of energy compliance. And proposed language here, the submission shall happen when the draft regional plan is submitted to the Land Use Review Board for review and adoption pursuant to 4348 of this title. The commissioner shall issue an affirmative determination on finding that the regional plan meets the requirement of subsection C and allows for the siting in the region of all types of renewable energy generation technologies. And so currently in the statute, if the Regional Planning Commission includes the proper components within the regional plan, they can receive this determination of enhanced energy planning. After that, if that has happened, the municipalities within that region can then do the same for their municipal plans and identify areas where they want renewable energy and places they may not want renewable energy development to happen, and that allows them to receive substantial deference at the PUC during the 248 process, 248 mapping. So I think I don't know how much you've heard about this proposal.
Not much, really.
So the department, I believe, is interested in trying to have these two regional planning review processes maybe happen at the same time. And so you may want to hear more about how they actually want that to happen. But currently this has existed for almost a decade now, this process by which the RPC identifies areas they want for available for use for renewable energy generation development, and the municipalities do that also. But first, the regional plan has to be approved by this compliance of energy has to be approved by DPS. And so now that there's this new process where the LURB will be reviewing the regional planning commission plans and maps, they want to sync those two reviews up.
Okay.
And so that may actually require additional language, but I wasn't sure their exact proposal.
Okay. So we would want to hear on this section. I mean, this really is what did I call it? Salad basket. I just wanted to remind everybody of that phrase that I made up. You're welcome. So we would want to hear on this section probably again from DPS. I think we'd want to hear from the Land Use Review Board, and I think maybe we should hear from RPCs.
Yeah, and I don't think their proposal is to change what the Land Use Review Board is doing, but somehow have the commissioner also just be involved at that stage. So there's syncing up the timing, but you should hear from them. And I think Ann Margolis might be working on this for the department.
Yes.
Ann. Okay. So this section needs testimony from DPS, Land Use Review Board, and the RPCs. Section 3, we've talked about. Section 4, I don't think needs any additional testimony unless maybe we want to hear from TCAB and just have them come in and say, please disband us. And then we have folks in the room.
I have one small flag before I finish. We have the date in here as effective date is July 1, 2026. I wasn't sure if for the energy efficiency section 1 on passage might work better, depending on the timing. So if the stakeholders on that have a preference, on passage might be easier.
Okay.
That's why it's highlighted. We were just gonna ask.
One more question for Ellen. I know she's gonna be on. Will this change set a precedent and how the dollars are used going forward for all the other EUs?
So I do think you should hear, I don't think so, but this would be the third time that this type of allocation. So previously, the legislature had created this pilot program to test whether or not the fund should be, the use of the fund should be expanded to other types of programs. That pilot program lasted for 6 years. It was not put in statute. And so this is another attempt to do something similar to that, and it is also not being put into statute. I do think you may want to consider, if this has been working well, if it should go into statute, or not. There are only 3 efficiency utilities. They operate very differently, and Burlington Electric specifically is very different because it is also a retail utility. So it's different than Efficiency Vermont and Vermont Gas Systems.
Would it be better to look at in totality with all the EUs to try and figure out language for statute going forward to where it's beneficial all across the board? So it's set in law, not just session law.
That really is a big policy choice, and I think it has come up a number of times. People will disagree, and I think you could hear about that and take testimony on it. That is something you could consider. It's definitely a policy choice.
All right, Ellen, thanks. I hope you're feeling better. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Maybe we could hear from, Darren, would you want to give us your take on this?
Absolutely. Good morning, and Darren Springer, General Manager with Burlington Electric Department. Was with you on the 23rd of January to talk about our proposal for how to flexibly use some of these what we call TEPF dollars, continuing along the lines that we've had for the last 6 years for the next 3-year period. You heard, I think, from us and the department that we both agreed that flexibility was warranted for BED, but we had some different visions of how to use the funds. Committee directed Alec and I to sit down and chat, which we did. Appreciate Alec and the department working with us. The language that was presented this morning from Ellen represents a compromise and includes priorities from the department around weatherization and thermal efficiency. It includes some of the flexibility that we were seeking to continue programs that we've had, such as our geothermal well testing program, some additional focus on incentives and different pieces. So 40% of the funds are available for those purposes. 60% are focused on thermal efficiency and weatherization. Any good compromise, nobody gets everything that they were looking for, but we're supportive of the language that was presented this morning. To speak to the questions that you had, we are open to supporting longer term policy here to have like long-term stability, but we are also supportive of continuing with this particular approach, given that we know there's a lot of change happening. And for us uniquely, separate from the other EEUs, we need this ability because otherwise we would only be able to use these funds to serve our oil and propane customers, whereas Efficiency Vermont has a number of oil and propane customers potentially to serve under existing law. We do not. We have, somewhere between 95 and 99% of our service territory is natural gas. And so the ability here is simply to say we can use these funds to serve all of our customers, regardless of their pre-existing fuel source. And that's a flexibility that I'm not aware that anyone else is seeking. So we've consulted with Efficiency Vermont. They were not seeking to be a part of the pilot or to be a part of this language going forward. They have other plans. So if it works for the committee to continue it as a 3-year program, we're certainly supportive of that. If you'd like to consider longer term policy, we'd certainly work with you on that as well. But we think a 3-year program gives us enough time to work with the compromise language we have with the department, implement programs, and certainly come back to you over the next couple of years to let you know how it's going and whether there's merit to having a more long-term policy in place. So we're very supportive of the language as it's written. I would agree with Legislative Council that having the enactment date for this section be on passage would be beneficial. We're currently at the PUC on this demand resource plan, which sets the budget for the next 3 years, 27 through 29. And so if this was to be passed, having it be effective on enactment will allow us to go in and update our plans with the PUC well in advance of the beginning of the new performance period and budget. So we'd certainly support that change, and I'd be glad to answer any questions if I can.
Questions?
Sure, I'll ask a question. Hi, Darren.
Hi.
Thanks for this. I guess I'm wondering about layering on incentives from different sources. So on the one thing I asked about before was this business about EV incentives. So correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, the EV incentives come out of EEC money, that the incentives that are available for anybody in the state. come out of EEC money. Is that right? EEC funds?
No, so typically the incentives that we have and that the other utilities have are coming out of the tier 3 under the renewable energy standard incentives. The EEC does not fund typically EV incentives.
I see. Okay, so it's a utility by utility using or getting credit on their tier 3 requirements.
That's correct.
Okay. So then would BED be anticipating using TEPF money, or actually I think that was part of the language, was that you couldn't also count it as tier 3, right?
Yeah, so just to explain that further, so the funds that we use here don't count towards our tier 3 requirements. They're sort of separately calculated.
Yeah.
So there's that piece. Could we augment our tier 3 incentive with additional TPF dollars under this provision? Yes, we could. We have done that in the past. We will have less resource to do that based on the compromise with the department. 60% of the funds are going to be going towards weatherization. So there's only 40% available for a variety of programs that we'd like to pursue, including the geothermal program and other supports. So we might consider, or we might have flexibility to propose EV adoption incentives or multifamily charging adoption incentives, but it won't be the largest kind of source of funding within the legislation that's going to weatherization.
Okay. Well, that clarifies that, although it is a little concerning that we don't have sort of equity around the state on this. But the other question is about using the money for weatherization incentives. This TEPF money would then augment what Vermont Gas is offering for weatherization. Is that right?
It could, but what I appreciate about the language that's been put together is we have the ability to support things that might not be part of the Vermont Gas program. For example, if a building needs repair prior to weatherization, or if a panel needs to be upgraded, or wiring, if there's knob and tube wiring that needs to be abated, or asbestos or other health concerns that need to be abated, we could use our resources to help with those issues. And then VGS could support the weatherization incentive on top of that to help with the actual project. So I think there's a complementary nature there potentially in what we would do. We wouldn't necessarily just be adding incentives on top of what VGS already offers in that scenario.
Okay. Well, I mean, far be it for me to not want to incentivize people to get their houses weatherized or to buy EVs. I'm just thinking in terms of equity around the state. That's all.
Yeah, and I would mention too that for EV incentives, they vary already. Different utilities already have different incentives for EVs as it stands under tier 3. They're not uniform, and each utility kind of looks at how much that value is for them and decides within the tier 3 context what they want to do. But appreciate your point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Alec, do you mind
Sure.
joining us?
Certainly.
Okay. Up there.
Yes, nobody's sitting for outside.
Now that he's moved out.
Yeah,
Sure,
I'm sure.
sure.
Switch back.
I can answer. How many efficiency programs is BED territory are there in the territory?
How many providers or?
Yeah,
Well, there's us as the major electric efficiency
Right.
provider, and then typically there's Vermont Gas as
Mhm.
the main thermal efficiency provider.
Mhm.
We also work with, both of us work together, and we work with CVOEO as the CAP agency, has a low-income weatherization program as well. So it's really those 3 entities that coordinate on various projects. And if somebody, say, has a heat pump in their home and a boiler, a gas boiler, we might provide some incentive funding and they might provide some, and we split the value essentially. So there's already a good working relationship there.
and I'm just thinking about the distinctness
Mhm.
of your territory with the natural gas provider.
It's very unique in the context that we as an efficiency provider overlap almost wholly with natural gas resources, and yet the TPF statute currently written only allows the funding to be used for the unregulated fuels, of which we have very, very few. So we're unique in that sense, whereas
Mhm.
statewide, of course, we have a number of oil and propane and wood peak customers that would be considered unregulated fuel and able to be served under this provision.
And you are subjected to the tier 3 requirements.
That's correct. Yeah.
This is, trying to remind myself of why I have felt like this was important.
There's some uniqueness and some complexity to our service territory in that regard.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Alec Anchek, I'm the director of the Energy and Efficiency Resources Division at Public Service. And there's not much more to add. I think Darren said it well. This represents a compromise. I think Representative Campbell sort of echoed some of the department's concerns around equity still, but I think on the whole, the balance with the amount of weatherization that's being included here, I think the department is comfortable with it. And I think we would just reiterate that the ED does have a very unique and particularly challenging service territory in the context of PEPF. And so it's important to keep that in mind, and that there needs to be some solution here. And with the compromise we have here, we feel like this is a pretty good one.
And the thought of setting precedent or for the other EUs?
Well, I think again, as Darren said, EVT is really the only other going concern as far as EMA. VGS doesn't have the same issues. And so as far as this DRP cycle, EVT has explicitly said that they're not interested in continuing with the program and really don't have the same needs as EVT.
We haven't had a man, so maybe we'll get him in. Okay, great. All righty, so more testimony to take. So we'll work on getting that scheduled, and we'll just keep you guys posted as, if and when the language evolves. But thanks for getting together on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I think we can probably go off live and take a 5-minute break.